Okay. All right, great. Good evening. My name is Kayla McDonald. I am the Economic Development Specialist for the Sweetwater Economic Development Coalition, and I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. We have a great panel of experts here representing some pretty exciting projects coming into Southwest Wyoming. There's going to be an opportunity to ask questions after we go through the ones that our coalition has put together. And when you come up to, excuse me, when you come up to do your question, you can use the podium here. And that will broadcast out through our YouTube channel right now that we have streaming live. So this is being broadcasted live. You can come back to this feed on the county's page and review it afterwards. So I'm going to introduce our panelists here, and then I will introduce our moderator. So tonight we have Rita Meyer representing TerraPower. We have Alicia Summers with Frontier Carbon Solutions, and Craig Rude with Project West, which is WeSoda, and Megan Kinney here with Carbon Capture Incorporated. And our moderator this evening is Liz Bingham. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her and we'll get started. Oh, sorry, David. I forgot David is up there. I knew I was going to forget him. I'm so sorry. He is on Zoom and he is representing Pacific Soda. So we'll turn it over to Liz.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. All right. The first few questions we have, they're for all of the projects. And so I'll just go down the line if that works. The first question is, what is the timeline for construction for each one of your projects?
Okay, so for the TerraPower project, it's called the Natrium Fast Reactor Demonstration Project. So it's actually kind of three separate builds, if you will, connected by infrastructure. The first build is one we announced last year. It's called the Sodium Test and Fill Facility. That'll be a facility that does testing, obviously, on sodium, not only to be used as the coolant medium in our Natrium reactor, but actually that facility, what goes on in that facility will be useful to nuclear power projects across the United States. So I was just out, just spent the morning in Kemmer. We had what we call a safety summit with both TerraPower and Bechtel. Bechtel's a major contractor on the builds. So I have some new dates on the test and fill facility, but then also we're building a nuclear power island and an energy island. So there are actually three kind of distinct builds with different timelines. On the sodium test and fill facility, we had hoped to begin construction in May. Well, we deal with the federal government. We deal with Department of Energy. We deal with the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, and we also deal with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So the best laid plans sometimes go awry. When we first started the project, we were told that we didn't need an environmental assessment on the sodium test and fill facility. Well, then unfortunately, things changed in Washington and we had different oversight. So then they decided, oh, by the way, you do need an environmental. So instead of beginning to scrape dirt, push dirt last May, we're looking now at after the first of the year. So we will begin the sodium test and fill facility in 2024. That'll be for the foundation and civil works. I just got these dates, so I want to make sure, because once I give you a date, I know what happens. People hold me to it forever. The third quarter of 2024 will start the steel building erection. The fourth quarter of 2024 will be the mechanical and electrical, and we'll do a startup and commission on that building in 2025 and 2026. The other, the nuclear power, the nuclear island, and the energy island, there'll be some crossover in construction time, even with the sodium test and fill facility. But of course, we have to get the permit application to the NRC, and that has to be approved. So that paperwork is being submitted in 2024. So hopefully after that, we can start and they get their answer back to us, we can start the scraping and doing the build on those other projects.
Thank you so much. All right, Alicia, you are up next with Frontier Carbon Solutions.
Okay, this is new, so I'm not, hopefully you guys can hear me out, usually on the other side. So very different. There's lots of pieces to our project, not as many as TerraPower, thankfully, but we have, what we do is we capture CO2 from industrial facilities point source emissions. We purify that CO2 and then we transport it via pipe to we call it a hub and spoke project, where we sequester the CO2 underground subsurface and we store it permanently. So there's lots of pieces that we're working in parallel. The drilling part of our Class 6 wells, we started that process with the application with DEQ in September of last year. Thankfully, we're well underway. We're in our public comment period on 3 Class 6 permits. That should end on October 24th. We're super excited about that. And then once we have those Class 6 permits in hand to construct, we will construct our first, we'll begin our drilling program in spring of 2024. That's all dependent on the winter here. So we're going to wait on that last snow melt before we actually start drilling those wells. Our project, just to kind of give you an idea of where it's located, it's at the corners of Sweetwater, Lincoln, and Uinta counties. It fits right in there. We got a little bit lucky in how our project kind of started laying out. It's all state and fee land. So right now, we don't have to deal with with the federal government, at least initially. I'm not saying that's going to stay the course, but our capture technology, our capture facilities, we have multiple underway, and those are all at various stages of engineering. For our first one, we're kicking off our last round of engineering studies within the next couple of months before the end of the year. That'll take about 6 to 8 months to finalize. Once we get those studies underway, we'll have a better idea of when those capture technology facilities are going to start construction. So still high level.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. Craig Rude with Project West.
Well, much like everyone else, we're dealing with a lot of agencies right now in the permitting process. We started our permitting in late in 2022. And the timeline right now is to submit our industrial siting permit the 1st of 2024. And then hopefully the comment or the public hearings on that will happen in April or so. The planned construction period starts in January of 25 with a startup of the plant in 2027. So
Fantastic. Right on. Okay. This is exciting.
all dependent on permitting though.
Yes, I know. This is true. Megan Kenny with Carbon Capture Inc.
I think similarly, a lot of this is dependent on permitting. I think we are still pushing for a small deployment to be up and running by the end of 2025. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this later. But I think probably more exciting for us is that back in August, we found out that we were awarded a DAC Hub project. So one of what will hopefully be 4 federally funded DAC Hub projects in the US. We'll be starting a FEED study on that in January, and we are hoping that will kind of enable us to go out into Southwest Wyoming with a much bigger project as an initial deployment that we originally planned at about like 200,000 tons versus some of the smaller stages that we were planning for Project Bison originally.
That's fantastic. So that stands for direct air capture, correct?
Direct air
The DAC.
capture,
Okay,
yes.
fantastic. Thank you. All right, I can't see from here, but for the next we have is David Steed.
Yeah. Can you guys
There
hear
we
me?
go.
Yeah, you can hear me? Very well. Okay, great. Well, like everybody else that spoke already, I mean, we are highly dependent on permitting. We've initiated at least to some degree, almost every one of our major permits at this time. We started our EIS in April of 2022. That had a very aggressive time frame of 18 months. And of course, there's been changes to that schedule due to needs for additional resource analysis, but mostly with agency consultation required between the BLM and other federal agencies. So we haven't seen a fully formalized completion schedule from that, but we're anticipating to have a final EIS ROD. We're kind of reading the tea leaves by the end of 2024. All of that really syncs up very well with our state permitting, the other federal permits that we required to facilitate or receive for this project. So we're looking at basically a notice to proceed for construction late 2024. Of course, that's right in the middle of winter, so there's a lot of things to plan around with that component. We're anticipating about a 24-month construction period to get to initial startup, where we would have some operation begin to start pulling trone out of the ground. And so, and approximately 9 months after that, we would finalize our well field and anticipate a full operation. So we're looking at, that 24-month startup to 33 months for full operations. So we're looking at 2020 completion of permitting 2024. So initial startup in 2026, and then full startup 9 months after that. So similar
Fantastic.
dates to what we've heard from other people. So a lot of moving pieces for a lot of companies and projects at the same time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Sounds like the next few years is going to be really busy. All right. So another question to all of you, and that is, how many temporary and permanent employees will each of your projects need? Do you want to start that one, Megan?
So on the temporary side, as we're thinking about sort of the DAC hub at scale, I think we've calculated approximately like 1,000 plus construction or temporary workers. I think the one thing that I would add, though, is that this deployment is happening over years. So when we think of temporary, it's probably going to be a span of like 5 to 7 years. So at least multi-year. On the permanent employee side, I think we're looking at 400 plus at full deployment. In the first couple of years, it's likely to be a little bit closer to like 100 or so.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, Craig.
So over our 2-year construction period, we'll average around 800 temporary employees, with the peak being in January of 26, which the peak will be about 1,200 employees.
All right. All right, Alicia.
So it's still early for us. For temporary employees, it's going to be significant because these construction projects are rather large and they take a long time. We don't have those numbers just yet. With that engineering study I mentioned, that's going to fine tune what that is. For permanent, we're envisioning high level 20 to 25 permanent employees for each. What we calibrate it to 1 million tons of CO2. So for each 1 million tons of CO2 we capture, we estimate about 20 to 25 employees, and that's for each capture facility. So, and then that should be fine tuned with our engineering studies coming up soon.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, Rita with TerraPower.
So with the sodium test and fill facility, we'll have about 150 temporary workers, probably 25 to 30 full-time workers. For the nuclear island and the energy island, we'll peak at about 1,300 workers over a period of 3 years. There will be some lap over with the other construction projects, because one probably won't finish before the other starts, before we get the approval to start the other projects. So full-time on the 1,300 craft workers part of with the sodium with the nuclear island and the energy island, and then about 250 full-time employees once that site is fully commissioned.
Oh, it's fantastic. All right, David Steed with Pacific Soda.
Sure. So we've shared some initial manpower curves on our project to facilitate the EIS and of course our ISP discussions. But we have a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of major components of this project. So there's, a well field to be developed. There's pipelines, there's roads, there's power. Of course, there's the processing facility with refineries, cogen, et cetera, water lines. So we're, on an average, we're looking about 2,000 to 2,500 people, somewhere on a temporary component during that initial 24 to 31 months. Or 33 months, excuse me. But at peak employment, we're upwards of 5,200. And so there's quite a few folks that we would be having. That's mostly kind of in the months 17 to 24 timeframe. So right in the thick of major construction components. We also are anticipating that our temporary and our full-time operations will start to overlap, especially when we start to do initial startup after 24 months. So we'll originally have about 200 people full-time employment at 24 months in. And then that'll transition to about 520, 530 at completion of construction and full operations.
Wow, it's a lot of jobs coming in, guys. That's exciting. Thank you so much. All right, your next question is, how is your company planning to recruit employees for each of your projects? Do you want to start that one, Craig, with Project West?
Yeah,
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I'm involved with a group in Sweetwater County called the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership, and we are doing a lot to develop employees and get the younger folks in our community interested in these type of projects and these type of jobs as they're coming up and know what they need to do when they get out of school. We've also got a good relationship with Western Wyoming and the craft jobs and developing those. And then we're also getting out and getting in the high schools and talking to them before they graduate and, about what great careers these can be. Any of these projects are great careers, and especially if they want to stay close to home. I'm also involved with a group called Skills USA, which is a national organization that actually trains young adults to be in the skills and trades. And thinking about how we can work with that group to attract some of them to Wyoming, as well as at some point, we're going to have to go out and do external recruiting around the country because we just don't have the population in Wyoming to support all these jobs. Even if everyone stayed and went to work in these jobs from the area, we just don't have the population.
Well, being the least populated state, that kind of is not so surprising, right? All right, Licia, would you like to, with Frontier Carbon Solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So for construction, we'll work with a reputable firm in the area in the Rockies for the construction facilities. But when it comes to operational, we've already been in discussions with Western Wyoming College. So same thing, working through the local community college programs and other programs in the area to source that talent. For the subsurface side of it, we are all oil and gas professionals, longtime oil and gas professionals. We have experience specifically in Sweetwater County, so we'll leverage some of those existing relationships to help operate on that side, on the transportation of the CO2 and on the subsurface side. And then we need more people in the area for sure when all these projects get up and running. But the good thing is we can expand on some of the skill sets that we already have in the area because a lot of them are the same that go to work that we need for our projects as well.
Oh, very good. Thank you. All right, Rita Meyer, you are up with TerraPower.
Well, I certainly know we will be competing with all these folks on their projects as well as many others that we're not even talking about here tonight. And Wyoming is in a real hurt with workforce. We're also in a real hurt with housing. You can really, these workers can really command a pretty high per hour wage, but it is still going to be difficult for them, even if they find housing in Wyoming, it's going to be difficult for them to find a place to live that they can afford. So that's what keeps me up at night. Even though I think the state, I think communities are doing a lot of work on housing. We're kind of behind the power curve on that. But Bechtel, of course, our contractor for the build, they have a lot of their own workforce that they will be bringing in. But in addition, it's been our line from the first as a company, we want Wyoming workers first, but we know Wyoming workers can't fill all of the needs for the capabilities that are needed. So we're going to have to recruit outstate as well. It's what Craig said, mega ditto. We're working with the community college. We're working with the University of Wyoming Workforce Services. I was just up to the Wind River Job Corps the other day and met with some young people in those programs. I think there's a lot of capability there that we haven't begun to look at yet, but we're going to need to. They've got some 8 trades programs that are really good programs. But once again, those young people, first job out, they're going to be faced with where do I live and how do I afford that, that part of my life. So not only providing the housing, but having affordable housing and childcare. If we're going to draw women, a lot of single women are really out there and they're an untapped resource for these really good jobs, but they're going to be looking at housing, affordable housing, and they're going to be looking at childcare. Business is going to have to step up in a way that we have never stepped up in Wyoming. So I think hang on to your trousers. This is going to be a wild ride. But all this is I am so bullish on this Wyoming economy. We are so fortunate to be sitting here talking about all these great projects, about the investments being made. Ours probably will be close to a $5.5 billion investment, not state dollars. These are private dollars with investors and Bill Gates money to keep this project alive. And he signs my paycheck. So I'm all for, I'm all for Bill Gates and what he's done. He's gotten investors from Korea and all around the world in the project, plus investors here in the United States. So this is a public-private partnership. This project would not happen without that private private-public partnership. You're not going to get it all from the federal government. God knows we don't want it all from the federal government, but sometimes we have to use federal money to jumpstart these projects. But the investor component, as all these people will tell you, is really important to standing up in the success of these projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rita. All right, we'll go on to David Steed with Pacific Soda.
You know, this is the great thing about going last. Everybody ahead of me has said the same things that we're worried about and some of the ideas that we have. And it's a very challenging labor market right now. As everyone knows, or anyone who's trying to hire anybody, it's been very challenging, and we see that coming up. I think there are some great opportunities, and tapping into the local workforce. Of course, there's the traditional corporate hiring methods, whatnot, but, opportunities for training and long-term employment through Western Wyoming Community College, various economic development discussions we're having right now or starting to have, and explore that. But, I also want to see, tap into where we can tap into the labor market that is transitioning out of maybe some of the historical jobs within the region as well, and being able to retrain or reposition those folks for our full-time employment. During construction, the bulk of that is going to be contracted through various construction firms or components of the development of the project, right? So there's going to be definitely some hiring stress there during that initial construction period, all the way through startup. But it's where do we find those full-time employees? This is a fairly new technology. There are some similarities to the oil and gas market, so there's some things to tap into there. But we're going to need to have those people in a very short period of time. And this is the sort of thing that has, been laser focused on permitting and regulatory approvals. But now this is the thing that starts to keep us all up at night, is where to find that talent pool and how to initiate that as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, David. You are next, Miss Megan with Carbon Capture Inc.
I suspect our answer will sound quite similar. I think we intend to build on the relationships with the educational institutions that we've been starting to build for the last year, particularly the community college, doing outreach in K through 12 to build awareness. I think one thing I should also call out is that as part of the DAC Hub funding, it will start in January. We will be building a carbon management training program, a separate new training program with the community college as well. But I think otherwise quite similar to the rest of the panel.
That's exciting. So very challenging, but exciting all at the same time. And yeah. Oh, well, maybe these could have been combined, but the next question is, what local workforce training programs will you need for each of the projects? So I think some of you did touch on it, but if you don't mind, if you can, Alicia, if you have any more to add.
Yeah, so it basically ditto everyone in what I said previously. So luckily, a lot of we don't have enough resources by any means, but thankfully the skill sets that exist in the area lend itself to the same workers that we'll need for our project as well. And then oil and gas, there's not as much oil and gas activity in the area. With our project, we'll have a few jobs available for them as well. So that's a plus. But basically, to leverage the resources with Western Wyoming Community College and other, we're working with in some of our due diligence that we've done out here, education is huge. So trying to develop new programs too, and not just at the secondary, at the college level, but at high school level too, so that when high school kids graduate, they're ready to hit the workforce as well. And that's huge. And then keep kids here rather than leaving. And I think there's a lot of development with this discussion, all these projects come into the area. I think we have enough jobs that we can keep kids here. So ways to help them graduate with that skill set is huge. And so we're noodling on those ideas as well to work with the counties on projects like that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. If you have more to add, Rita.
I would just say one of the reasons this project was cited in Wyoming is because Wyoming has a very high energy IQ. And that was really important to us. In addition to that, we want to make sure we have training programs for kids. A lot of kids that are, live in energy centric households, they graduate on one day and the next day they go to work where dad or grandpa worked. And we want to make sure they have the skills right out of high school to go and maybe not stay in that job forever, but have an ability to progress, make sure they have the capabilities they need to go at 18 into that first job. So it's going to take a lot of hands on deck to help make that happen. And we're going to need every worker. And we got a big responsibility, a big challenge ahead of us to provide the training. With regards to the part I look at is not the construction workforce, but it is the operational workforce for the nuclear power reactor and the energy island. If you're producing electricity, whether you're producing in a coal plant, a gas plant, or wherever, or in a nuclear power environment, a lot of things are the same. Like our energy island, the folks can walk out of a coal generation plant, a gas generation plant, and be right on work that same day. The nuclear island is a little different, but still, we look at retiring nuclear power plants across the United States as a great recruiting place. So there are a lot of places we're going to look. And as I say, for all of these, all these projects, there's a great opportunity for this whole next generation of Wyoming workers.
That's exciting. All right. Do you have more to add to that, David Steed on
Sure,
Zoom
yeah.
or on Pacific Soda? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think one thing I'm hearing, and I'm sure everybody else is hearing in the audience, is there's a lot of things happening all at this pretty much at the same time, with an incredible amount of demand upon local infrastructure as well as workforce and other things. And I've heard I was able to attend a legislative committee meeting last week, and there's some interesting discussion about some ongoing studies related to housing and economic development and opportunities for training, things like that. And frankly, I have to admit, Pacific Soda has been a bit late to some of these discussions, but I'm happy to be part of them now, and kind of wish I wish I'd started some of this a couple of years ago, because we're all faced with the same demands at the same time. I can't help but think that there's some mutual benefits to working together on some of these things to help find these solutions at the regional, local level, working with the county, working with the state of Wyoming and various agencies to address these type of concerns, and not just with the recruitment and bringing the people in, keeping the people in the local area, but also minimizing the demand upon the local infrastructure, housing, sewer, water, roads, et cetera. And I think many hands will make this happen. Maybe it's the kumbaya nature that I have, but I think there's something here, and I think we should probably be talking more about it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Megan, if you have more to add.
Probably not too much more. I think that we can use leverage a lot of the existing programs that the community college has. Like I mentioned, we're also going to be standing up that additional program. I would definitely echo that. I think that given all of this is happening at the same time, that there is opportunity for us to do that in a coordinated way. I think that there are already existing forums to do that. I'm sorry. I'll speak louder. Some existing forums for us to do that, like the manufacturing partnership that exists already. So we will just continue to leverage.
All right. That's great. That's really exciting about the training you'll have up at Western. All right, Craig, finish us up.
Well, I guess I sort of mentioned most of those in my last response, but I guess one thing I would add is a couple of years ago, it was actually pre-COVID, but I went around the state with the Wyoming Mining Association, and we were visiting in different sectors of the state, talking to the high school counselors, college counselors about what jobs were in Southwest Wyoming. And we spent a week doing that, and we sort of hit 5 areas in the state. And it was shocking how many people had no idea about all that we have going on down here in Southwest Wyoming. So I think that's one thing that we're going to need to do, is get the word out around the state of, we've got these good jobs. It's in Wyoming if you want to stay in Wyoming. So, it may be moving from Gillette down to Sweetwater County, but you're still going to be in Wyoming and make great money and provide a great living for your family.
And Sweetwater County in Southwest Wyoming is awesome. So that's great to come here, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, now we've got some project specific questions. So we have a question that goes to Project West and to Pacific Soda. So I'm going to go to David Steed first. How will the proposed rate increase from Rocky Mountain Power impact your project?
Well, Rocky Mountain Power is an important partner for us. They're actually part of our ongoing permitting right now. We are, working with them to upgrade their power line we have a couple different action alternatives, proposed action and another action we came up with that we actually prefer. But we're working with Rocky Mountain Power on both of those to provide startup energy to our project. But our project is also dependent upon a cogeneration facility where we have a little bit more operational flexibility, long-term security, cost security, especially in development for the project and operation of the project. So, our long-term wise, we do have that connection with Rocky Mountain Power, but I don't, with that cogeneration, I think we may mitigate a bit of that potential effect upon us. There are other things that we're looking at there, specifically how they intend to use natural gas, and the demand upon the local supply of that when the Jim Bridger Power Plant fully transitions over to natural gas, or if that plan keeps on track. There could be some effects upon our natural gas supply in that period of time, but frankly, that'll be probably an effect upon almost every partner within Sweetwater County. So, but I'd say, right now we're tracking it, but it's, I think we're mitigating it through our cogeneration development.
Great information. Thank you so much. All right, Craig, do you need me to repeat it or
No.
you good? Okay. You're like, no.
Well, I guess, we're working with Rocky Mountain Power too. I mean, to get our power. We are, as of this point, are not going to do cogeneration. So we're going to be partners with Rocky Mountain. At some point, we will do some sort of renewable. Also, it won't be for startup, but we will be doing some sort of renewable at some point in our, as we get down the road. I guess I would equate it. So running a soda ash business, you have 2 or 3 big costs. The 2 biggest ones would be manpower and your energy, electricity and natural gas. And they're huge. I mean, they're big costs to the business. So if you think about that in your personal life, either your rent or your house payment's probably the biggest payment you have. Add 30% to that. And it does the same thing to the business. So it's a big amount, and it's a big amount.
It's a big amount. I understand. Thank you, Craig. All right. This question is I have 2 questions for Frontier Carbon Solutions. So Alicia, with the robust industrial expansions in Southwest Wyoming nearing, will you share with us how the Sweetwater Carbon Storage Hub can help support these growing industries?
Yeah, so whether we like it or not, I think market conditions suggest that carbon emissions are going to be a cost of doing business. And so with the Sweetwater Carbon Storage Hub, we plan on working with local industries to capture their CO2 and safely and securely and economically solve that and reduce their carbon footprint and help, offset their carbon emissions. And so I think, looking at what's going on with coal, if we had a solution back then, maybe some of these mines wouldn't be decommissioned like they are now. So we're here to fit that piece of the puzzle, solve for those CO2 emissions, take care of them so industries can keep going on and they're not replaced by other alternatives, either here locally or in the nation or in other countries. So ideally, we work synergistically with those industries to help solve that problem.
That's very good information. Thank you. All right, your next one is, you recently partnered with the University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources on their largest grant to support the development of a new large-scale commercial carbon storage project in the Greater Green River Basin. What are the next steps for that project?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I'm a little bit nervous too, because it is the largest. So excited that we partnered with the University of Wyoming. It's a mouthful, School of Energy Resources, a great partner. They've been a huge resource from the very beginning when we started our project. So this is just, it feels like it's time. So we were selected earlier this year. We're currently in our negotiation period with the DOE. That takes a little bit of time, but we anticipate kickoff in January of next year. And then with that, it'll be about 2 years of conducting science and studies that'll benefit the Sweetwater Carbon Storage Hub, Frontier, UW, SER, and then also Southwestern Wyoming. There's a huge component of community benefits that goes into these grants. And so we dedicate a huge portion to what we can do for the local community through apprenticeships and other programs. And so throughout the 2 years, we'll be developing that as well.
Oh, that's very exciting. Thank you. All right, for TerraPower, so for Rita Meyer, will you please share any updates on your evaluation of additional locations for advanced nuclear in Wyoming?
Sure. When we first looked at site options here in Wyoming, we tried to partner this project with the projected closure date of a coal mine. That's one of the reasons Naughton was chosen, because it had the closest closing date of 2025. That has since changed in the IRP. They have converted 1 unit to gas, and I believe 2 more are on the drawing board. But yes, we have an MOU with PacifiCorp for the coal plants in Wyoming to include Jim Bridger Power Plant, the Dave Johnson Power Plant up in Glen Rock, and Wyodak up in the northeast corner of the state, and also Hunter and Huntington in Utah. So those, I believe we're just about ready to deploy a team to be looking at Hunter and Huntington in Utah. So that work continues. It's a pretty intense process of evaluating the site capabilities, the community's capability, the infrastructure that exists, what has to be done to for that community to solidify around another nuclear power plant. So we also have we have the demand here in the United States for this technology. And like all of us on this panel, these are emerging technologies, a lot of them. Some of them are old technologies that are given a new face, if you will. But these projects are all a really, really heavy lift. They take really smart people, a long-term commitment, and a lot of capital. But every day I also have an opportunity with my colleagues to deal with other countries. Slovakia this week, it was Great Britain in the last couple of weeks. My boss just got back from Vienna. And so there is a demand for advanced nuclear power technology around the world as countries are dealing with big demand for a reliable power feed. So that's really exciting that Wyoming and Cameron particularly is really in the sites. I mean, when is the last time somebody from Slovakia said, we know where Kimmer, Wyoming is, and we are very interested in your project? I think that's really great for Wyoming, and not only for our project, but for these emerging technologies here and for these projects, because Wyoming is really on the global map for what we're doing. And I always say we can do it best in the state of Wyoming, and we have the wherewithal to do that. We have the communities that support us. We have local governments. We have, I'm telling you what, the support around our project, like I'm sure these other project representatives will tell you, has been incredible all the way up to our congressional delegation. So we're lucky to be doing business in Wyoming. We're lucky to be dealing with Wyoming DEQ, with the Wyoming Department of Transportation, and all these entities that help provide support to make sure we can deliver the project. So I say, if it's going to happen anywhere, it should, and it will happen in Wyoming.
That's exciting. Thank you, Rita. One thing, it's making me excited about all these jobs and all of your awesome energy with all of you. Thank you so much. All right. So 2 of them go to you, Megan, for Carbon Capture Inc. The first one is, will you share with us how the new advanced nuclear industry in Southwest Wyoming may be able to help support Project Bison?
So direct air capture is a fairly energy intensive process. We're really excited about the prospect of nuclear in the area. Our project has to run on low carbon intensity energy for it to be successful. And of the options out there, nuclear is probably the best when it comes to those types of metrics. I think in the long run, we are also interested in exploring other opportunities as well beyond just electricity. If we are co-located, not to add even more complexity to your project, we can take advantage of other synergies like waste heat and things like that that would really benefit our project.
That's exciting. All right. Your next question is, you and numerous partners were recently, and you talked about this, but recently awarded the Department of Energy grant for the development of direct air capture hub here in Wyoming. Will you share with us where that project stands and what is next?
Sure. So similarly, we're in the negotiation period right now with the DOE, and we expect the award period or official start of that project to be in January of this year. The project is supposed to be about 2 years long. I think you can play around with that date. Can't really be more than 2 years, but about 2 years. The main components, the couple main components of that work will be an integrated feed study. So this is a feed study that looks at both our deployment, but as well as several other partners on the project, including 12, which is a sustainable aviation fuel company. And that will include sort of interconnection with other partners like Frontier Carbon Solutions on the sequestration side. Another big component will be the development of the community benefits plan. Similarly, it is a big part of DOE projects, existing and up and coming DOE projects. So we have some things that have already been laid out in that plan, but a big part of it will be trying to understand how the community wants us to engage with them. We want to give you what you guys want. So we'll be doing a lot of listening tours during that time to better understand what the community needs. And I think one thing I will also stress is that this project is not static. The partners that are going into this project may not be the exact same set of partners at the end. That's not to say that anyone's going to be kicked out, but we are also working with the University of Wyoming to help identify additional participants who can participate in this, including both on the direct air capture and utilization side.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. We are going to come back to you because we have a question for Frontier Carbon Solutions and carbon capture. So we'll start with you, Alicia. The geology of Southwest Wyoming is perfect for geological sequestration projects. Will you speak about utilization opportunities that each of your companies are exploring with captured CO2?
Yeah, so absolutely. So not only is it good for CO2 storage, I mean, I think the Green River Basin is, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. You have helium, oil and gas, and now CO2 storage, just to mention a few. But we are, our first and foremost priority is to solve CO2 emissions for hard to abate industries and store that CO2 permanently. And we're partnering up with some folks like Carbon Capture Inc. and some others to store their CO2 that they capture. And part of that is once it's stored, it has to be stored and stay there permanently. We can't produce from the reservoir that CO2. But that's not to say the CO2 that we capture, we can't do something with it before it gets to that storage component. And so we have been talking about other opportunities such as EOR. We're in an area where there's already significant infrastructure, pipelines, transporting CO2 for enhanced oil recovery in fields across the state, and then also all the way up to Montana. And so as those fields require more CO2, it'd be perfect option to take our high purity CO2 and figure out how to work with that existing infrastructure and supply EOR fields as well. And then also there's new opportunities, burgeoning technologies, such as sustainable aviation fuels that we're looking into, cement, and then other opportunities that are still kind of new, need a little bit more homework before they come to fruition. But all of that's on the playing field. And I think that this area with our open source hub could be a perfect fit for some of those opportunities.
So exciting. All right. On to you, Megan.
Sure. I think our answers will sound somewhat
Probably.
similar. As it stands in the DAC Hub materials, we're reserving around like 20% of the CO2 that's captured as part of the project for utilization versus sequestration. Right now, the main partner that will be involved in that is potentially 12, a sustainable aviation fuel company. We are looking into low carbon concrete as an option as well. And I think similar to what I mentioned before, we'll be relying on University of Wyoming, who I think is an expert in this space, to help identify other potential partners to be involved in that. But definitely
Fantastic.
be going the utilization route.
Yeah, that's very exciting news. All right. We've got 4 questions, I think, to finish up for all 5 projects. We're going to start with you, David, with Pacific Soda. We are in a very tight housing market in Sweetwater County, as Rita already referred to this, with limited properties on the market. What are your plans for housing your employees during construction and your plans for housing your permanent employees, if any? Is David still with us?
Sorry, I'm on mute.
There we go. Oh, no, good.
Sorry about that.
I can't see from here.
Yeah, no, it's a very challenging issue, and I'm sure everybody will indicate that, right? We have a pretty good idea of the available housing. We've done some fairly detailed socioeconomic modeling to identify the type of housing available in Sweetwater County and surrounding areas. From an analysis standpoint, we've been focused on Sweetwater County, but we're also looking at kind of the general vicinity region in this portion of Wyoming. But we're looking at a variety of different offsite modular sort of support expansion of either RV parks, full-time or development of housing, et cetera. But like I said, I indicated in a previous comment, there was some really great discussion that I heard last week at the legislative committee meeting in Rock Springs around county and state studies associated with maybe looking at funds and approaches for developing modular housing and or facilitating some of these sort of temporary housing needs as well as full-time employment housing needs. And I think that's where this is not just a Pacific Soda issue, right? This is a combined within this group sort of concern and need. We're creating a lot of benefit, an incredible opportunity for not just the region, but the state of Wyoming. But there's also with that an impact upon the infrastructure within the region that we need to be part of the solution on as well. And so I don't have full answers, but I would say that as a company, we're fully committed to work with economic development within Sweetwater County and the state of Wyoming and other entities to explore this and identify potential path forwards that make sense.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll go to you, Megan.
Sure. So a member of our team, Matt Bright, attends kind of the same monthly meeting that David was mentioning that talks about kind of the housing challenges that the local area is facing. I think realistically, some others are probably a bit further along in their analysis of their project's impact on the area. I suspect that will be coming up quite soon for us as our project will also require industrial siting. So as we get into the thick of that, I think we'll have a much better answer. But similarly, I think we are committed to doing this in a coordinated way and doing this in a sustainable way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Craig with Project West.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a work in process right now. A lot of the things that David mentioned, we did wind up bringing on a housing expert to help us with this and look at how do we accommodate that many workers, especially when you look at all the projects and hear how those timelines overlap. So I think we do need to work together on this, and it's very complicated. We haven't been through this huge growth in Sweetwater County probably since the 80s. And so it's going to be interesting, but I do think we'll have to work together. We are looking at even how do we develop housing for our permanent workers, which is the long-term issue, especially when you hear the numbers that we all stated today. It's a big increase when the housing market's tight already. I think, we've got a group that is working on it here in Sweetwater County. Many in this room are involved in it, that Representative Larson is leading. And so hopefully we'll get some help out of there. But it's going to be challenging.
I agree. Would you like to add something to that, Alicia?
Yeah, I echo everything. Everybody is saying there's nothing new. It can't be done in a vacuum. And I'll be the first to say I'm over my skis when it comes to figuring out the housing equation of the whole puzzle piece, especially when you take into account all these projects that are going to come to fruition at the same time. But luckily, I've worked with some great county officials and they are proactive and they're thinking about it. Thank goodness. So I hope that all of of us can work coordinated, collaboratively with those folks to help us figure out what this is. It's still early. I feel like my head's been down working on the challenges of just getting our project to fruition, or just start to crawl, I guess you could say. So, that's like next on the list of things to do, but thankfully you guys have a lot of smart people and I can't wait to work with them, and then everybody here on the panel as well. It'll be a challenge that we all need to overcome together.
Fantastic. I think we have a great crew in Sweetwater County too. So, and you guys are all going to make it better. That's awesome. Rita, do you have any more to add?
I would just say like the other projects here, we want our workers living as close to the work site as possible. The construction workers, that is a bigger concern to me, even though that's a kind of a Bechtel issue. It's our issue as well, because of the numbers. A lot of the people that will ultimately end up as the full-time operators, probably a lot of them, over probably 50-60% already own homes in the area. So that's kind of already existing. But the whole issue, and I think the idea, you know, people think, well, the construction folks are used to this. They travel around, it's rough and tumble. I'm here to tell you that today our construction workers want more quality of life than they've had in the past. And sometimes in Wyoming, we say, well, it's good enough. I'm here to tell you the things that we think are nice to have in community, even for our transient workers, are probably not good enough. Those workers have time off. They're going to want to do things with their time. We want them to be constructively working. The arts, cultural things, greenways, all of those things, parks, ability to go to a workshop and maybe while you're deployed in the area, work on your car, work on a neighbor's car to build something. All of that is going to be real important. So how we've done business and how we've treated the construction force in the past is not the way we're going to be able to treat the construction force in the future, or they may come, but they're not going to stay.
That makes sense. Thank you so much, Rita. All right. So we have another question. As all of you know, the Rock Springs field office of the Bureau of Land Management has released their draft resource management plan. Now, given that it's roughly 1,400 pages and your teams are likely still working through the document, do you have anything that you would like to share regarding the impact it could have on the success of your project? If you don't, we understand. How about you, Craig?
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to have an impact on Sweetwater County, a big impact. We are, as the Wyoming Mining Association, preparing a response, and we're still digging into it. I've spent a lot of time reading it. It's whether it's industry or recreation or anything in Sweetwater County, the preferred alternative B is not good. So I would just encourage everybody to be involved, and until we know exactly what comes of that, we won't know how it's going to affect the industry. But if it is the preferred alternative, it will be devastating for Sweetwater County, including current Trona operations.
Right, I know. All right, Alicia.
You're right. It's a hefty document, and I can't say I've read the whole thing. We have a general counsel in-house that's looking at it and digging through it, and we're going to come together and figure out what comments we lob in, because it definitely merits comments from anybody who's interested in working in the region for sure. I think it's extremely short-sighted to think that this isn't going to handicap Wyoming, Southwest Wyoming or Sweetwater County. It's and it hopefully it gets resolved. Admittedly, the initial footprint of our hub is not affected, but that's not to say it won't be as we start growing and expanding. And it needs to be addressed, and we can't tell you what those comments are because it's still digging through the document, but we will certainly be addressing it as much as we can.
All right. Thank you so much, Rita.
I would just say that those kind of edicts from Washington give me great concern, because it's a creep that really impacts Wyoming. You know, the economy of Wyoming, the United States global economy, rests on the back of electricity, and affordable, reliable, all of those things. And these kinds of, the overreach from the federal government really puts us in peril, and not just in Wyoming. When you think about the economy of the United States, the demand for electrification, the growing demand for electricity, and what this potentially can do in growing the resource is really, really concerning.
I understand. All right, David with Pacific Soda, if you have
Yeah.
anything.
I do. I mean, we're in the middle of an EIS, and the BLM is a very important part for us, right? We're in a checkerboard. Every other section, right, is BLM or private. And I think one of the, there's many troubling components to it. We are very risk management oriented. We're constantly identifying resource, economic, political, permitting, design related type of risks affecting our schedule and our performance. And I have to admit that even after multiple conversations, coordination with the BLM, since we've started this process way back in 2020, this was not on the table, or at least this preferred alternative wasn't. And so it's a bit concerning, especially as we have developed our alternatives and action items for the EIS that this hadn't been mentioned before. But we have dissected the RMP. We've spent quite a bit of time with it. We were just able to take a look at the GIS that was provided last week on the planning site and start to layer over all of the acreages associated with each resource management action plan and how that may affect our facility. Most of the effects on our project are not so much in the well field, but would be in the processing facility that we propose as in our alternative. And specifically the effect upon limitations on right-of-ways and infrastructure development. And so, we're tracking that. And of course, you can start playing that timing issue of when the RMP would go into place versus when our project would be approved and see where that goes. But overall, I think Sweetwater County has a immediate demand to get some comments back. It's very concerning, especially with the checkerboard, this type of action that's being thrown out there and the kind of that incidental take of operational authority and abilities for private landowners to be able to do anything. And so between the right-of-way restrictions and other resource restrictions, this is going to handicap not just potentially our project, but almost every major development within the region. And so we're here to help on that. We have to be somewhat cautious because of our EIS involvement. We're also working with various entities on comments. Probably we'll be working with the Essential Minerals Association as well on some formal comments there too. And we'll see how it plays out. But it's concerning, and I can't say enough of how much we're concerned on the direction it's going.
Yes, I know everyone needs to get their comments in. That's for sure. Megan, do you want to finish up?
Sure. We're a pretty small team, so I would say that the person who has spent the most time trying to understand the document at this point is me. I think it's similar to Alicia. I think, and looking at the GIS map that's been released, I think the footprint that we're playing out for the project is not directly affected, but I think that we're quite cognizant of the fact that it will have a pretty profound impact on our partners. And I think more broadly on the development of like carbon management industry in this particular area. So we definitely appreciate that.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you. All right. We've got 2 more questions and they're not too bad. So we'll start with you, Rita. Will you share how you have been and continue to be involved in the community?
Absolutely. We're proud to be a partner with the community of Kimmer and Diamondville. Sometimes we forget about Diamondville, but equally important to the project. We partnered with the Lincoln County Events and Training Center in helping them integrate new technology, because we realized we would be using that facility, but not only us, the community uses that facility just extensively. So we're looking for places to put investment in the community that will make a difference. We also partnered with Game and Fish on their grant proposal, gave them some money, but also encouraged others in the industry sector for safe passage, wildlife passages, which, as we know, that is not an issue, not just for the wildlife, but for our workers that are out on those roads every day. So we'll be doing a lot more, as will Bechtel. But like anybody, we have some finite dollars, and we want to make sure that they are directed appropriately where they're going to make a difference in the community.
That sounds great. Thank you, Rita. All right, Alicia.
Yeah, so we're still in the early stages. Like I mentioned before, we've kept our head down, trying to tick away at all the challenges that we have. Being a new industry, carbon management is very new to the scene, and so first was trying to make sure that we could get capture technology that it makes sense and install these facilities. And then also these Class 6 wells, there's a huge hurdle to permitting these monsters that are so robust and comprehensive. So we were trying to get past and mitigate a lot of these concerns to finally get to the point where we have an actionable project. But during that time, we've been working with the community, and education was key. For us, education was huge. A lot of people didn't understand that there's already a huge CO2 infrastructure across the state, and that CO2 is non-combustible, non-hazardous, hazardous in concentrated forms, but you know what I mean, non-flammable. So education was huge. And then pore space, educating the landowners on what pore space was and what value that they had, not only landowners, private landowners, but the state as well. So education was huge, but we also took that opportunity to listen to everyone we were talking to and ask them, what do you need? Where can we fill a hole? How can we help? And so we're still developing those ideas on what we do with the community. And a lot of it is education. They want education for high school kids coming out so they can hit the workforce and go from there. Also, the Nature Conservancy has worked with us and asked, us to help them as well with some of their projects that they have. So we're working on that as well. But so training has been huge, and so we're listening and kind of building out what that looks like. We are going to work with Western Wyoming Community College for apprenticeship programs too as well. So it's all kind of taking shape as we speak.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Right on. Okay, Craig.
Well, Jenner is our parent company, and so we've been involved in Sweetwater County since 2015. And I think we've been very active in the community and working. It's part of our culture to do that. In Turkey, actually, when they do a project, they actually build a school and then donate it to the community. Now we can't do that here, but we do like to be involved in the community. We've done projects with the Boys and Girls Club. We've done projects with Head Start. We sponsor many events. I'm on a lot of boards, both local and statewide. So we are very involved and it is something we talk about constantly, and how do we stay involved and make an impact on the community, because we're partners in the community and we want that to be a great partnership.
Fantastic. I think some people here wish you could donate a school. They would like, that would take care of Rock Springs High School. All right. I could tell. All right, Megan, if you'd like to.
Sure. I think that we've tried to be quite intentional about community engagement, even in the very early stages of this project. I think the first time that we came to speak to some of the commissioners in Sweetwater was actually before we even had an agreement with Frontier Carbon Solutions. So like a key part of the project. There are a couple of things that we do on a somewhat regular basis. We meet monthly with a community engagement board of several stakeholders from the community, several of whom are in the room right now. We also meet monthly with a number of other stakeholders in the county. On a sort of ad hoc basis, we'll also come out for specific events. I'm sure I'll see several of you at Manufacturing Day tomorrow at the community college. We've also done 2 town halls that are open to the entire community to date. We will also, I'm sure many of you will be getting a mailer soon. We'll be doing one at the end of the month that is open to the community. Part of that is a presentation by a number of different people, both from our company and more broadly. And the second half is a kind of an open Q&A. I think the last thing that I'll add there is that we aim to make all Q&A available, publicly available on our website. So after those town halls, all of the Q&A that was done is there. We're also happy to answer any other questions.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, David.
Sure.
With Pacific Soda.
Yeah, most of our engagement to date has really been centered around what we've been doing to either support the EIS or, kick things off with permitting the state of Wyoming permitting various processes there. And, frankly, I feel like we've been so laser focused on that we're missing the local touch, the coordination at the local level, and, could play upon, what Craig had indicated. I mean, Jenner is a partner on our project along with Sysagem. Both have a history of relationships within the communities where they've been developing their projects worldwide. There's been things that both companies are doing, have historically done or continue to do here in the local economy through their involvement, in associations with the Big Island facility. So there's some models there, but through that established connections, we intend to build upon that. We clearly see the need to increase our engagement, to communicate who we are, what we are planning, and why it matters to the community. It's not all about economics. I've kind of said this in previous comments. We're still looking at how to minimize our footprint, how to manage and manage the resources that we're affecting in a sustainable way. We don't want to create, perception of negative effects, or real and or perceived negative effects on any other resource, any other land use with the county or use. And so I think, my maybe close is, we need to do better. We need to continue to communicate. We need to do the outreach. I think this is part of that, this type of opportunity. I'm again kind of getting back and very excited about upcoming discussions with economic development, Kayla and her group, and discussions with Dr. Dale at Western Wyoming Community College on training opportunities, and our ongoing discussion with the cities of Green River, Rock Springs, Sweetwater County, and others, and special interest in our local and our private land partners. Right, our project has an amazing amount of private land as well, that we rely upon it to initiate and operate our facility in the long term, and we need to be on the same page with a lot of different entities for a very long time.
Thank you, David. That's good information. Thank you so much. All right, here's your last one. Now it's, what can our community and local governments and state government do to support your project? So why don't we just do that one more time, Rita?
Well, I would just say that to date, we've had incredible support. Imagine what it's like to bring a nuclear power reactor, the first one ever, to the state of Wyoming, and be looked at as potentially replacing the good old workhorse fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So we feel, I think we've done a lot of education and a lot of outreach, but I'm telling you what, our local officials, our county commissioners, our legislators, the governor, the business community, the economic development groups have embraced the project. And, it's not, like another generation. You bring a project in and you just sit it down and people are happy to see you come. There is a lot of demands for our time across all of these projects. People expect more than they've expected in the past. Or the environmental issues, sustainability, housing, all those things, they turn around to the developer of a project and want you to be responsible for it. Well, our deal is we're not going to be a vertically integrated company. We're a nuclear innovation company. We want and we expect that the private sector will stand up on housing and many of the other things. But it is our job to provide the facts in the timeline so that the private sector can stand up and do what they need to do to support the project in the long term. So we are very happy. I would say we have the legislation in place that we're needed, led by elected officials from this part of the state and embraced by others that had the capacity to vote. So we're happy with where we're at today, but every day I wake up in the morning and say, I wonder what the headline's going to be. You worry about a lot of stuff. as I know all of these folks do. So we don't need anything now other than champions for the project. Doesn't cost anything to be a champion, and we appreciate all the support we've gotten today.
Thank you so much. All right, Alicia.
Yeah, our experience has been exactly the same. For those of you that don't know, Wyoming has been like, they're ahead of their time. The legislative body, they established, way back when they established legislation to help and statutes to help carbon operators like ourselves come to the state and help their point source emissions and solve those problems for them. They're ahead of their time. And in fact, Wyoming was #2 to receive primacy for Class 6 injection well applications behind North Dakota. And a lot of states are scrambling to get that now. They took that out of EPA's hands because the energy IQ in Wyoming is so high. You guys have those resources. So why wouldn't you take on that opportunity to manage it yourself? And so, in working with the state, county, city officials, everybody's been extremely supportive. And not only that, but they're still challenging themselves and asking us, what can we do? How can we help? And I just think it's phenomenal. It's been great to work with everybody here at the state. I have nothing but good things to say. So education, I think just continuing that education, that support, that just goes miles. It's been great to work in the state of Wyoming. I think I know Wyoming better than my home state, Texas. I'm ready to move. So, yeah, it's been great.
Right on. All right, Craig.
Well, to echo what the other two have said, state and local government has been great to work with and always have been. So I think where there is an opportunity to help will be with the housing, because as Rita mentioned, we're not housing experts. We don't know what to do there. We're happy to help and provide information, but that's going to have to come from the private sector and investors. And I think, there are a lot of regulations that slow down that process across the state. Some places it's worse than others, but they're everywhere. And I think one thing that could happen is if we could help relieve some of that, where it's a lot easier to put in a subdivision or have smaller lots in a subdivision within the town, or multi-use housing and just some different options that aren't available right now because of different zoning around the state and in Sweetwater County.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. All right, Megan.
Sure. I think to echo what the others have said, I think the support to date has been great. And if I would ask for one thing, I would ask you to keep doing what you're doing, which is helping us learn what we don't know. I can appreciate that we are kind of newcomers to the state, and we don't always know the right person to talk to or the right thing to share, but I have appreciated a lot of the feedback that we've gotten. It has helped us learn a lot in the last year.
That's good. Sounds like Wyoming's hospitable. I think that's good. David?
Again, it's going last. Everybody says everything I was going to say, so I don't have much more to add. But frankly, I mean, the response at a local, state level has been phenomenal. I think we appreciate everything there. I think, in order to keep that support, though, we realize that we need to continue to establish a level of trust. We need to be clear and consistent in our communication. I think jointly, I believe we share an understanding of our economic benefits, but we also realize that, that many of our decision makers at all levels, decision makers and or have some level of gauged interest in the project are trying to do more with less, right? They're either staff constrained or they're resource constrained. And we recognize that, and we've tried to be able to contribute to that as much as possible. We hear a lot of comments from the state about various agencies, especially within DEQ, not having enough people or salaries not being there. So we try to bring that up in various discussions with the legislature. We try to keep our federal delegation very informed on where we're at with different things as well, and kind of beat home some of those points as well. But to me, it's a constant engagement. We need to be constantly talking, communicating with you all. And like I said, there's things that are coming out of just some of the most recent discussions that I wish we had started, 2 years ago. And I'd be much more comfortable knowing that we're going to have all those things in place when we need them, here in hopefully in the next 24 months, right?
Thank you so much, you guys. It's been my pleasure. We'll now turn it over to anyone in the audience. So if you'll give me a second. Just so that the YouTube recording people can still hear. Anyone from here who'd like to come up and comment? JT, if you'll come on up.
Well, thank you all for all the information you're providing, and look forward to continue to work with you all. One thing I am working on is addressing the housing needs, and I guess I just need to hear from you guys. We've tossed around a few ideas. Mark Cowan has a great idea, as well as I'm coming up with a few options, but one of them I'm thinking of is maybe doing like a matching grant for infrastructure for housing. Because I think that that's what's the barrier to entry for most people is the land cost. You can't really control the price of a 2x4, but you can assist with getting the infrastructure to the land. So maybe a matching between the cities and the state, or if there's private industry that would want to assist with the infrastructure to get the housing lots down a little bit. But looking for your opinion on that, because we're coming up to a budget session and I want to be able to fight for what the money we need. So
I would just say the housing developers probably are the best folks to provide you a very reasoned answer. That is just not my bailiwick. And I would not want to provide information that wouldn't be germane to what you need. But thanks for your efforts and thanks for the meetings that you're holding. I think those are very productive because I do think it is the number one issue, because we will not have a workforce if we don't have adequate housing for them in these communities.
But I do think, and I agree, I'll just say it again, I'm over my skis when it comes to this, like all things subsurface land, ask me away. But this, I'm a little bit over my skis. But, a lot of us up here, Megan and I, and then there's other groups in Wyoming that have carbon safe, grants that are underway. If, a lot of those budgets are kind of set in place, but going forward, if there's room for that, I think if we can be proactive going into that and maybe work, because this is a huge problem that goes with community benefits, maybe there's something we can work in there as well. So.
I think, one thing we face in Sweetwater County is, and I like the idea, but is we don't have a large home builder that can come in and knock out 100 homes in 6 months. And I mean, and we shouldn't have one. I mean, with the number of houses we build, but that's sort of what we need right now. And so I think whatever plan we put into place has to make adaptations so that our small contractors that can build 5 houses a year can be involved in that and help solve our problem. It may be some combination of a big builder and our locals, but I think that's one of the things we face is we just don't have that mass quantity construction. Even if we provide enough infrastructure for 1,000 homes, we can't build that many that quick.
I think I would just echo what Alicia said. I'm also probably a bit over my skis on this topic, but I think an approach is something that can definitely be explored as we're building out the community benefits plan, which is a huge component of the hub work that will be starting in January.
thank you.
Yeah, JT, I'm full in with having a discussion, right? I think we need to be looking at options. We've had a variety of different discussions on what this looks like for our temporary and our full-time, long-term operational staff. And we keep settling on kind of a portfolio sort of approach, right? Is it tapping into, what housing is available locally, or what can be expanded upon, and what is new? And so I would like to have the conversation just to see where you and various other folks with, in the legislature and ideas there at the local level, what that may be, what may be there for discussion and expansion upon. But I'd say let's talk. This is a conversation we need to have. We want to be very proactive in our approach. I think we want to be consistent. I'm not speaking for everybody here on the board. I definitely not speaking completely for management within our company. There's a lot of discussions that need to be had on how that would look, from a financial sort of component. But I think it's something that we collectively as industry, titans of industry in the area, looking at these different projects. There are some solutions I think we can help provide here.
I would just like to add one more point, and that is, don't let developers off the hook. Don't let them do poor quality construction and have that construction blow apart with the wind 5 years down the road. Wyoming deserves better. Developers are going to make money in Wyoming. They knew that, or they wouldn't be talking with us. But oftentimes when new projects are developed, you have a lot of snake oil salesmen that come in the first round because they smell money. They want to take from the community, not give to the community. So be very aware of that, do the proper vetting, and get developers that really care about our communities for the long term, because we don't need to be cleaning up the trash 5 years down the road.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we'll continue working hard on this subject. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Larson. All right, anyone else from the audience? Feels like in school. Yeah, come on up. If you'll state your name.
Carl Lemke, and I work for Wyoming Machinery Company, but I'm up here. Craig mentioned the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership earlier. We have a meeting scheduled for the 3rd of November. This is where you write, at 8 a.m. And we would really like for everybody on this board, Craig will be there because he has to be, to participate in that meeting, if at all possible. We are a group of folks that have gotten together. We have some incredible partners, the college, the high schools, and it's not just in Sweetwater County, it's actually all of Southwest Wyoming. And we work together with government, and all of the right players are in the room to help address that manpower challenge that we have. And I think if we all start to work individually, it'll take longer, but if we can all stay focused and work together, we'll see some real results from that. So we'd really like to have you here and participate in that and engage with us as we work to fix this little challenge that we've got, because we have the right people together to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Anyone else? All right. You'll please state your name.
My name is Tom Gangan. I live in Rock Springs. I'd like to address Rita Meyer with some questions and concerns. First off, I should say that I really liked some of your answers, especially regarding better working conditions and living conditions for people who live here, workers. I guess I have to tell you that my original knee-jerk reaction was when I heard about this nuclear plant coming to Southwest Wyoming. My reaction was simply, it'll never happen. Okay, I really believe it'll be started. Construction work will begin. But when we look at the national history of nuclear plants, they're all billions and billions of dollars overrun. They take a decade and a half longer to build than originally projected. They end up producing the most expensive electricity in the nation. Okay. Given all of those things and the small amount of electricity that this projected nuclear plant is projected to produce, which I believe is what, 480 megawatts or something? 345. Okay, excuse me. My understanding is that you can get that with 100 wind turbines, and you could create that electricity at very competitive rates. Okay, and in other words, you can sell it. Whereas this nuclear plant, it's not going to be able to produce electricity anywhere near as cheap as either a wind or solar plant or just about anything else. It'll be the most expensive electricity in the nation and not very much of it. I mean, why should I, as a consumer, have confidence that this nuclear plant is going to be built? And if construction does start in 2024, as is claimed, when's it going to be finished? And what are the rates going to be like per kilowatt hour, for example? Okay, thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you're
Thank
probably
you.
referring to the Vogel plant, was just the most recent plant to come online in southern United States, different technology completely. This is a 345 megawatt, those are in 1,000 megawatts. You can't operate the grid totally on renewables. You've got to have a reliable base load source, fossil fuels or now nuclear power to balance the variability in the system when the renewables aren't, when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. So that is a major factor in bringing nuclear online. What we see and 345 megawatts, these can be built and like a Lego set, then you can add another 345 megawatts. So it's not just set at 345 megawatts. Plus, the land imprint, the imprint at the site is very small compared to the land that's needed for the megawatt production with solar and wind. They take thousands of acres to produce the same amount of megawatt electricity. So the cost, I'll tell you what we're paying today for electricity is going to look a lot different in 5 or 6 years across the United States because of the push for electrification. So it may look more expensive today, but by the time we get out there, electricity is just going to cost more. It has to be competitive when you work in a regulated utility environment. When the utility goes out to choose a resource, the cost of this per megawatt hour has to be competitive with other generation resources in the pool. So that gives protection. With this particular project, when the negotiations were done with PacifiCorp, the ratepayers in Wyoming can't pay for any cost overruns for this project. That has to be absorbed by TerraPower. So there's no cost effect, if you will, on the ratepayer in Wyoming, whether it's industrial or commercial or residential. That did not happen with the Vogel plant. I don't know what the outcome will be for those ratepayers in that state because that project, as you said, I watched it. I watched that project for years. What's happened, they've had a lot of different developers in there. This is a different animal. And I'm telling you what, Bill Gates is convinced Wyoming is the place to prove this technology. We got to move it from the lab into the marketplace to commercialize it. You don't, the first one out of the box is not the cheapest one. The cheapest one is when you can take advantage of what you learn and go down the road, and probably there'll be a profit made maybe at the fifth or sixth one, but we're already in the development stage of one. This particular power reactor, we use about the same amount of water as the coal plant does per megawatt hour, but we're also looking at one that will operate without water. And that's going to be, it's not the coolant for it, but just in terms of the energy production, because we realize the constraint on water across the United States and what we're using today in all kinds of generation, even with the fossil fuel electric generation, we're not going to have the luxury of using that kind of water in the future. So different animal, different technology, cheaper to build in the Vogel plant for a whole variety of reasons that my engineers could explain to you is why it is cheaper to build than Vogel was per megawatt hour. But that may not satisfy you completely, certainly. But keep on studying it, keep watching it. Bill Gates was here in June. We have regular conversations. He is committed. He's writing the checks right now for a lot of this. And without Bill Gates's backing, this project wouldn't happen. And a lot of others, there's a micro reactors that are starting, you're hearing a lot of conversation about. They're complex. All of them are complex. They cost a lot of money to develop. But without the baseload capacity, we just can't bring on more renewables, even in the state. The grid cannot accommodate them.
Thank you so much. I'm struggling with this microphone. I can't get it on and off. Anyone else who would like to comment? I see maybes. Anyone? All right. If there's no one left to comment, I will give this back over to you, Kayla.
I just want to say one more thing. I forgot to talk about our uranium industry in Wyoming. These guys have held tough, they've held tight, and they are just waiting to be unleashed to start production in their uranium fields again. There's another great opportunity for Wyoming. What the federal government did in turning its back on nuclear a few years ago, it literally shut down Wyoming uranium production. And these guys are ready to go. They understand that this will be the first of many projects, and we are really happy to see the federal government finally realize that we shouldn't rely on some other governments around the world to provide what is most needed to power our society. So.
There we go. Thank you so much, Rita. I apologize. If you guys have closing comments to make, we'd like to have you make those then, and then we can, well, this is how we'll wrap it up. Anyone want to volunteer? Or should I just go down that list? What do you want? If there's no volunteers, I'm going to go down that list. David, do you have anything in closing you'd
Sure.
like to say?
You know, well, I mean, I'll keep it brief. I think we have a very good story to tell. We have a very interesting project, cutting edge technology. It's been proven out. It's a proven technology. It's not an experimental by any means. We have done, research and development out there on the site with a test facility. We know we can economically produce high quality natural soda ash cheaply and effectively, which will do nothing but establish Wyoming as the center of the continued center for natural soda ash production in the world. I think we have a long-term story to tell. We have a life of mine around 30 years, but we have resources out there that will take us over 100 years if things go right. Right? There's a lot of challenges to that. There's economic, there's political, there's regulatory. There's a lot of different things that can happen in the meantime, and we're of course keeping our eye on that. And I look at everybody in the room on this panel session as potential partners too. There's power supply needs. There's what do we do with some of the carbon that we do, that we will be having to deal with. Associated with our project and our drilling activities, et cetera. I think there's a lot of different things here that we can be collectively sharing and discussing over time, and hopefully you can find some other solutions for other problems that we don't even know we have yet. But I think just in closing, I appreciate everybody's time. I can't quite see the audience. I appreciate the county putting this panel session on. Did I lose you? Oh, there you are. Oh, now I can see the audience. I appreciate all of your time to be able to attend the meeting tonight. Wish I could talk more. I wish I was there. My apologies, and hopefully I'll have an opportunity to be face-to-face here soon and take more direct questions and build more relationships locally. So thank you.
David, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Megan?
Sure. I'll just say I'm really excited about what the next couple of years look like in Wyoming as we start to get our technology out into the field. As David mentioned, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of challenges, but this is a good group to face those with. Thanks for putting this panel on, and we're happy to answer any questions. I will say in the drop-down menu on our website, if you do community inquiries, those go straight to my inbox. So I will always reply.
Thank you, Megan. All right, Craig.
Well, I'm excited. A lot of you know that I was at one of the traditional soda ash mines for 31 years and decided to go out and work on this project because it's exciting. And it's the next step for Trona. Trona's been a good partner in Sweetwater County and the state for 70 years and will continue to be that. And we should be the soda ash capital of the world instead of just the Trona capital of the world. And we can do that. And we're hoping that these first couple of projects unlock that potential. Others follow, maybe new mines, and become the soda ash capital of the world. So it's exciting times, and all of these projects are so exciting to hear about. So things are going to be fun in Sweetwater County.
That's awesome. All right, Alicia.
This has been fun. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for putting this together, Kayla and team. This is huge. I was sitting here thinking, wow, I finally made it to the cool kids table. That's how it feels right now. So this is fun to hear about all these projects. When we were incubating it, back, I call it a COVID project because that's kind of when we started this. It was I had no idea all these projects were going to be coming to fruition. So this is super exciting. But you guys have been wonderful to work with. The state of Wyoming has been, everyone in the state of Wyoming has been wonderful to work with, but we're approachable. You guys have certainly been approachable. We don't know what we don't know. So I'm ready to learn from you guys as well. It's just fun and exciting. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Alicia. All right, Rita.
Well, thank you for the robust participation this evening. I know it's not easy. A lot of you've traveled, you work regular day jobs, and yet you show up. There would be a lot of places, a lot of other states where people wouldn't show up for these conversations, and they're very important to have. When I look across this room, I think, gee, a few more people know about the project, and that's really important, that we have a huge following on what's happening. I would not be associated. I came out of retirement for the third time to take on this project because I felt so excited about what could happen. Felt excited that it was going to come to Wyoming. It was going to come to people say, why Kimmer? And I said, well, this is all the reasons why Kimmer. So real excited about it. Appreciate your robust support, and we'll look forward to coming back at your invitation and giving you updates as we have progress on the project.
Well, thank you so much. Like I said, it's been my pleasure. Thank you to SCDC for the Sweetwater Economic Development Coalition for putting this together. Thank you, all of you, for participating. I feel like I've been following along, reading articles and trying to, keep up with the information. And I learned so much tonight. So that's my hope for everyone. And we all have our homework. Keep educating people and get the word out. So thank you very much.
And get involved in the RMP.
There you go. Yes. Make your substantive comments. Yes. Thank you so